I see it in your eyes. You can feel it from my heart. From here on after, stay the way we are right now, and share all the love and laughter a lifetime will allow. I cross my heart and promise to give all I've got to give to make all your dreams come true. In all the world, you'll never find a love that's true as mine. You will always be the miracle that makes my life complete. And as long as there's a breath in me, I'll make yours just as sweet. As we look into the future, it's as far as we can see. So let's make each tomorrow be the best that it can be. I cross my heart and promise to give all I've got to give to make all your dreams come true. In all the world, you'll never find a love as true as mine. And if along the way we find a day it starts to storm, you got the promise of my love to keep you in all the world, you'll never find a love that's true as mine. A love that's true as mine.
Amen. Amen.
It started way back in third grade. I used to sit beside in a new day. A pink dress, a matching bow with her ponytail. She kissed me on the school bus, but told me not to tell. Next day I chased around the playground, crossing monkey bars to the merry-go-round. And in Lou got caught passing me a note. Before the teacher took it, I read what she wrote. Do you love me? Do you want to be my friend? And if you do, well, then don't be afraid to take me by the hand. If you want to, I think this is how love goes. Jack, yes or no? Now we're grown up and she's my wife. Still like two kids, the stars night. Ain't much changed, I still chase her. Up and down the hall, around the bed in our room. Last night I took her out in a white limousine. 20 years together, she still gets to me. Can't believe it's been that long ago when we got started with just a little low. Do you love me? Do you want to be my friend? And if you do, well, then don't be afraid to take me by the hand. If you want to, I think this is how love goes. Check yes or no. Do you love me? Do you want to be my friend? And if you do, well, then don't be afraid to take me by the hand. If you want to, I think this is how love goes. Check yes or no. 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 There's a mellow world inside of me that you may never see. There are secrets in this life that I can't hide. Somewhere in this darkness there's a light that I can't find. Well, maybe it's too far away, or maybe I'm just blind. Maybe I'm just blind. So hold me when I'm here, love me when I'm gone. Hold me when I'm scared, and love me when I'm gone. Everything I am, and everything in me, want to be the one you wanted me to be. I'll never let you down, even if I could. Give everything, if only for your good. So hold me when I'm here, love me when I'm gone. You love me when I'm scared, you won't always be there. So love me when I'm gone. Love me when I'm gone. The way your rejection sent next day cannot see under my skin. I won't tell you a damn thing that I could not tell my friends. Rolling through this darkness, I'm alive, but I'm alone. Part of me is silence, but part of me is gone. So hold me when I'm here, love me when I'm gone. Hold me when I'm scared, and love me when I'm gone. Everything I am, and everything in me, wants to be the one you wanted me to be. I'll never let you down, even if I could. Give everything, if only for your good. So hold me when I'm here, love me when I'm gone. You can hold me when I'm scared. You won't always be there, so love me when I'm gone. Maybe I'm just blind. So love me when I'm here, love me when I'm wrong, love me when I'm scared, and love me when I'm gone. Everything I am and everything in me, wants to be the one you always need me. I'll never let you down, even if I could. Give everything, if only for your good. So love me when I'm here, love me when I'm wrong, love me when I'm scared, you're always there. So love me when I'm wrong. Love me when I'm gone. Oh, love me when I'm gone. When I'm gone. Oh, when I'm gone. One sunset, just walk this way to the dawn of the light. When I blow into your face, as the years pass you by, hear this voice from deep inside. It's the call of your heart. Close your eyes and you will find there's a child of the dark. Here I am. Will you send me an angel? Here I am. In the land of the morning star. Westman said, just find your place in the eye of the storm. See the roses along the way. Just beware of the thorns. Here I am. Will you send me an angel? Here I am. In the land of the morning star. Wise men said, just raise your head and reach out for the sky. Find the door to the promised land. Just believe in yourself. Hear this voice from deep inside. It's the call of your heart. Close your eyes and you will find that we are on the dark. Here I am. Will you send me an angel? Here I am. In the land of the morning star. Here I am. Will you send me an angel? Here I am. In the land of the morning you send me an angel, when you send me an angel. Watching every motion in my foolish love escape. All this endless ocean, finding love is no mistake. Turning every turn into some secret place inside. Watching in slow motion as you turn around and say, take my breath away. Take my breath away. Watching I keep waiting, still anticipating love. Never hesitate to become the fading one. Turning time to some secret place inside. Watching in slow motion as it turns me insane. Take my breath away. Beauty of the glass I saw you. In time you slipped away. When I'm feeling crashed, I call you. I try to keep you safe. Only for tonight. I am take my breath away. Take my breath away. Watching every motion in this foolish love game. Only by illusion, somewhere there's a love in play. Turning every time to some secret place inside. Watching it slow motion as you turn my way. Take my breath away. Take my breath take my breath away. going nowhere. Somebody help me not going nowhere. Somebody help me. Somebody help me going nowhere. Somebody help me going nowhere. Somebody help me. Somebody help me nowhere. Somebody help me nowhere. Somebody help me. Somebody help me nowhere. Somebody help me I just let you walk away, just let you leave without a trace. When I stand here taking every breath with you, ooh, you're the only one who really knew me at all. How can you just walk away from me when all I can do is watch you leave? 'Cause we shared the light around the place, and even shared the tears. You're the only one who really knew me at all. So take a look at me now. There's just an empty space. There's nothing left here to remind me. Just a memory of a face. So take a look at me now. There's just an empty space. You coming back to me is against the odds, and that's what I've got to face. I wish I could just make you turn around and see me cry. There's so much I need to say to you, so many reasons why. You're the only one who really knew me at all. So take a look at me now. There's just an empty space. There's nothing left here to remind me. Just a memory of the face. Now take a look at me now. There's just an empty space. But to wait for you is all I can do, and that's what I've got to face. Take a look at me now. Just to stay here, and you coming back to me if it didn't start off. It's the chance I've got to take. Take a look at me now. Listen to how we go. Better attention, giving you attention, girl. Where to go? And down. Where to go? And down. Heading into twilight, spreading out her wings tonight. She got you jumping off the bed and shoving in the overdrive. Highway to the danger zone. Take a ride through the danger zone. Now say heading up to you, would you get it already? I know. You love no what you can't do until you get it up. I know you got to go. Highway to the danger zone. Gonna take it right into the danger zone. Highway to the danger zone. Right into the danger zone. Highway to the danger zone. Gonna take it right into the danger zone. Highway to the danger zone. Right into the danger zone. Highway to the danger zone. Gonna take it right into the danger zone. Highway to the danger zone.
Hey.
This is where we hold them. This is where we fight. This is where they die. And these shields, boys. Remember this day, man. For it will be yours for all time. Persian! Come and get them! Target on my back, lone survivor last. They got me in the sights. No surrender, no trigger, fingers go. Living the dangerous life. Hey, 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 every day when I wake, I'm trying to get up and knocking me down. Shooting me up, spitting me out. Hey, 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 when I need to be saved, you're making me strong, you're making me stand. Never fall, never fall. Shine like a rocket up into the sky, nothing can stop me tonight. You made me feel man, survival, flame, power, just like a tidal wave. You make me ready, come night, titanium, fight some raising up. Like the roar of recreation, standing up. Who can touch me, 'cause I'm who can stop me tonight? You make me feel invincible. I feel it, invincible. I feel it, invincible. Here we go again, I will not give in. I've got a reason to fight. Every day we choose, we might win or lose. This is the dangerous life. Hey, 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 every day when I wake, they say that I'm gone, they say that they're gone. Hey, 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 when I need to be saved, count me out, but this is my round. Shine like a rocket up into the sky, nothing can stop me tonight. Baby, just like a tidal wave, you make me ready, come night, titanium, fight some raising up. Like the roar of recreation, who can touch me, 'cause I'm who can stop me tonight? You make me feel invincible. I feel it, invincible. I feel it, invincible. You make me feel invincible. You make me feel invincible. Shot like a rocket up into the sky, making the sky invincible. Invincible, flame powerful. Just like a tidal wave, you make me ready. You're night, titanium, bright sun, raise it up. Like the Lord of victory and hysteria. Invincible, flame powerful. Just like a tidal wave, you make me ready. You're night, titanium, bright sun, raise it up. Like the Lord of victory and hysteria. Who can touch me? 'Cause I'm who can stop me tonight? You make me feel invincible. I feel it, invincible. I feel it, invincible. Check it out, here we go, let me say it. Jacks on racks, make the DJs wanna break. To the front, to the back, to the back, to the hip, to the up, and the front, to the back. Every single round on time, you admire. Stays in your brain like earth, wind, and fire. Here I am all the time, girl, you know me, I must admit I'm the real one. You see, I'm in love, she's something to be taught me. I'm in love, that's a fall, rather look at me. I'm in love, staring eyes, she's something to be taught me. She's something to be taught me. I'm intrigued by the taste of the way you dance, the way you move your waist. We meet face to face in a crowded place. Let me take you home. Let's cut the chase. Every man has two sides. What do you choose? If you chose my loss, that means you never lose. Never hesitate. Should be there for you. Listen to the words of. I'm in love. She's something to be taught me. I'm in love. That's a fall. I'm in love. She's something to be taught me. She's something to be taught me. Watching every motion in my foolish love again. All this and ocean, finding love is no shame. motion as it took me insane. Take my breath away. Pouring out the glass I saw you. Inside you slipped away. When I'm feeling crashed, I called you. I tried to keep you safe. Only for tonight. I am afraid. Take my breath away. Take my breath away. Watching every motion in this foolish love game. Only by notion, somewhere there's a love in play. Turning every time to some secret place inside. Watching it slow motion as it took my way. Take my breath away. Take my breath away.
Hey, my mind. Hey, I needed to see. Hey, I needed to see. Hey, I needed. Hey, so good. Hey,
Too much light, revelations. It's a privilege class. Meaning is frustration. Red every hope against all hope. They fall in line one at a time, ready to play. I can't see now anyway. No time to lose, we've got to move. Steady and down. I am losing. Trying to go, just time to go. Blowing away. I will stay on that side. Down the phone, we'll sing it up. Show me the way. Only the strong and forever survive. Leading me to heaven when we die. I have a shadow on the wall. I'll be the one to sing the song. There's nothing left, so take your breath, lying in wait. Caught in kindness, dying away. The compass blow, nowhere to go. Holding your fate, lonely, I will walk alone. Flying you go, it's time to run, blowing away. I will stay, let's start. After the fall, we'll shake it off, show me the way. Only the strong and the will survive. Lead me to heaven when we're tired. I am a shadow of the world. I'll be the one to save the soul. You want it back, burn, burn, burn. Only the strong and the will survive. Lead me to heaven when we're tired. I am a shadow of the world. I'll be the one to save my soul.
I have never drank in my life. What is it?
Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, you want to get the pump? Buy something from Jim.
The next bodybuilder is coming up. He doesn't need an introduction to a lot of you. He's just the greatest bodybuilder in the history of the sport. Arnold Schwarzenegger.
When I'm in this world, baby, better get that's true. Think it's unbelievable how you get into the hands of fate. There's something worth fighting for. Some feelings never die. I'm not asking for another chance. I just wanna know why. There's no easy way out. There's no shortcut home. There's no easy way out. Giving in can't be wrong. I don't wanna be sad. I don't wanna drag you down. But I'm feeling like a prisoner. Like a stranger in a lonely town. I see all the angry faces. So afraid that could be you and me. Talking about what might have been. I'm thinking about what it used to be. There's no easy way out. There's no shortcut home. There's no easy way out. Giving in can't be wrong. Baby, baby, we can share your skin. We can know how we feel inside. Instead of going marrying in this world, not knowing if we did or lied. Something's worth fighting for. Some feelings never die. I'm not asking for another change. I just wanna know why. There's no easy way out. There's no shortcut home. There's no easy way out. Give it in, can't be wrong. No, there's no easy way out. No easy way out. There's no shortcut home. There's no easy way out. No easy, no easy, no easy way out. There's no easy way out. No easy way out. Winner, 75 overall, Mr. Olympia, one and only, the greatest, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Hello, I'm John Voight. I want to share with you the story of my friend Donald Trump. As you know, he's running for President of the United States. And as you know, when he gets elected, he will make our country great again. The story begins in New York in the early 70s. The city was on the verge of bankruptcy, but Donald looked across the river and saw not a troubled city, but a city that symbolized America's greatness. And he was committed to making it great again. Donald was born in Queens to Fred and Mary Ann Trump. His father was a builder and was the greatest influence in young Donald's life. He learned about leadership early at the New York Military Academy. He became captain of the baseball team and captain of the cadets. He learned the building business at his father's side while working on his degree at the Wharton School of Finance. After college, Donald faced a decision: join his father in Queens or dream big and make it in the greatest city in the world. The decision was easy. Donald's first notable project was less about renovating a building than helping the city rediscover its soul. The once great Commodore Hotel languished in a rundown neighborhood next to Grand Central Station. The hotel was sold to the one developer who showed that he had the kind of drive, backing, and imagination that would be necessary. They chose Donald Trump. Donald convinced the banks that they had a moral obligation to invest in New York and negotiated a tax abatement with the city, jump-starting the project and creating new construction and hotel jobs. Donald's striking new building revitalized the neighborhood.
He single-handedly changed the Grand Central Midtown area by himself by doing that project.
Before long, more Trump buildings helped change the skyline of New York. Building in New York was not easy, but Donald was never more frustrated than watching the city waste 6 years and $13 million trying to rebuild Central Park's Woolman Ice Rink. Donald was astounded. It took him only 2 years to build Trump Tower. So he stepped in and took over the project. He finished in 3 months and under budget. He took over another city project, tied up in red tape since 1978. Donald transformed a landfill into a championship public golf course and saved the city millions. Donald will tell you his secret for success is a strong team.
He just has that knack of finding the right person, the qualified person who will really excel in that position.
Like his father before him, he taught his children the business, and now they're important members of the Trump team.
Mr. Trump and his children, they love what they do, and they are incredibly good at it. And I think that breeds the same type of passion for all those that work for him and are around him.
From day one, my father trained us really well, whether it was in a boardroom, whether it was on a job site. We spent time learning the business, and he made sure we understood the value of a dollar and what it meant to really work.
He'd send me renderings when I was a little girl with handwritten notes on them of buildings that were under construction or in the planning stage and say, I can't wait for you to grow up and help me build these. Now it's fun to stand shoulder to shoulder with my father.
Over the years, Donald has created tens of thousands of new jobs, many of them for women.
When I was building my building in the Park area, and he was building the Trump Tower, he had the first female construction superintendent on the job.
When he made me general manager 9 years ago, there were only 3 female general managers of 5-star hotels in the whole of North America.
After a long career, accomplishing much of what others said couldn't be done, Donald Trump has set his sights on a new rebuilding project.
I am officially running for President of the United States. And we are going to make our country great again.
Donald has said he admires people who put themselves directly on the line. Today, he's not only putting himself on the line, but under fire. Donald could have continued his successful career and spent more time with his family, but instead, he chose to run for president.
See, he doesn't need to do this, but what's been happening over the last 8 years has been so tragic for the course of our nation. He simply had to do this.
For my father to step away from a company that he's deeply committed to in favor of running for elected office was a real sacrifice for him.
It's Donald's nature to help others.
A lot of times he comes across a story or meets a person that touches him, and he'll make sure that that person is taken care of privately for the rest of their lives.
Donald Trump has a very big heart. When police officers or firefighters or even sanitation workers, correction officers, I can remember a teacher got injured or died, he would step forward and he would make an anonymous contribution.
For Donald, it all begins with our young people.
Donald Trump believes that higher education and more job opportunities will enhance the quality of American living.
Donald is committed to protecting our families and keeping our cities safe.
What I see out of Donald Trump, it starts with a message. It starts with a positive message of respect for the American law enforcement officer. But we need it from our national leaders, and that's where we're not getting it right now.
He is the one candidate, the non-politician, who can fix our broken economy and get America working again.
Trump is a guy, brand new, comes in, shakes up Washington, changes policies on taxes and regulations and helps businesses, and no income wage earners will get a raise for the first time in 15 years.
Donald will stand up for America.
Donald Trump understands negotiation. There's just no doubt about it. It's one of his great strengths, and we have been taken to the cleaners in world trade. We are losing jobs every year, every day, as a result of bad trade policies and bad trade agreements.
Well, some politicians say our best days are past. Donald believes our best days are yet to come.
Ronald Reagan was a cheerleader for America. He would talk about what a great country this is, how important it is to work. That gives incentive to people, and it makes working hopeful. I think what Donald Trump can do, he can give us hope again. He can give us pride in being an American again. He can make us feel like what we should feel like. We're exceptionally lucky people living in this country.
Donald Trump is a leader, not a politician. He will be honest with the American people. He will stop wasteful government spending of our tax dollars. He will cut our taxes and create jobs, and will rebuild our broken economy. He will lead this country, not apologize to the world for our success. He will always put America's best interests first, whether it's a trade deal with China or standing up to radical Islamic terrorists. As he has done so many times before, he will stand up for the brave men and women who defend our country and who protect us here at home. He will bring about the change this country so desperately needs and get the job done. It's been a long time since we've had a president like that. Donald Trump, it's time to make America great again.
Hey!
Good evening. I'm
Hey!
Tonight, millions of Americans, of course, are still talking about it. Election night in America, still feeling it. It is a triumph for millions who believe they have finally been heard. But there is also profound soul searching for millions as well, asking, how did this happen? Hillary Clinton winning the popular vote, but what cannot be disputed, a decisive win in the Electoral College for Donald Trump.
And late this week, that moment, the president and the president-elect, the first step on a long road toward healing. We are in uncharted political territory with tens of thousands of people taking to the streets to protest after one of the most divisive campaigns in our history. So, what drives this man, and how will it shape his presidency? Here's Tommy on this.
In 70 days, Donald Trump will have a new job.
I very much look forward to dealing with the president
in a new home, trading 3 floors of his glittering Versailles-inspired penthouse for the slightly more staid corridors of the White House.
I'm looking around this room. The White House might be a step down.
The White House is the White House. It's just a spectacular place. And, you know, it's something that represents something very special.
Lara Trump is married to Donald's son, Eric.
Will they totally redecorate the White House to look like Trump Tower? They have
They'll make things how they like them, comfortable, but very nice and well done, tasteful. They're not going to be knocking down any walls.
So how did he get there?
We're going to get to work immediately for the American people.
Even his close friends like billionaire real estate tycoon Richard Lafrac never saw it coming.
Well, I'm not surprised. I'm astonished. I'm more than surprised. But he gets the ball down the field. He's going to put it in the end zone and score a touchdown. That's the way he is.
I love this country. Thank you very much.
It's a story that begins about 15 miles away from his victory party 70 years ago in Jamaica Estates, a wealthy neighborhood in Queens, New York.
You can't understand Donald without looking at his childhood.
Donald J. Trump lived in this ornate home, the fourth of 5 children.
He did not grow up as a middle-class kid. The family had chauffeurs. He was taken to school in a limousine. He never had to work regular jobs.
He described his mother, Mary, a Scottish immigrant, as the perfect housewife. His father, Fred, was a millionaire real estate developer. The Trump patriarch has been described as a human machine, driven.
His father was, he was a demanding guy, and he did very much push Donald, and Donald, in some ways, was the chosen son.
That ambition was unmistakably prevalent in young Donald's DNA.
Donald, he was more than a troublemaker. He was a profound rat. He has said that he punched the teachers when he didn't like what he was being told to do.
In need of discipline, young Donald was shipped off to New York Military Academy.
Once he came under the control of the staff at the school, he wanted to excel. He had to be first at everything, even if it was just to get first in line for the cafeteria.
Just last year, Trump told ABC's Barbara Walters about his dreams at that time in his life.
What was your fantasy when you were very young?
To be a baseball player. I was a great baseball player.
What position?
First base, catcher, first base. But in those days, you got paid $2, right?
And that's not what Donald Trump did.
But my other fantasy as I got older was to do movies. I wanted to be a movie maker.
Do you think his father had any role in him not pursuing that career in show business?
I think there was no way Donald wasn't inevitably going to become a real estate developer. He's still fascinated by stardom. I think that was one of the things that stood out for me the most was this cinematic sense he has of himself. He identifies strongly with Orson Welles and Citizen Kane.
Until a few weeks ago, I had no hope of being elected.
But at the end of the day, his father exerted a pretty inescapable pull on him to come back to the family business.
He accompanied his father to sites all over New York's outer boroughs, where Fred Trump was building middle and low-income housing.
And I started off making little deals in Brooklyn and Queens with my father, and they seemed to work out.
And then with a loan from Dad, Donald Trump struck out on his own.
I think the rules that Fred Trump taught his son Donald began with, you must be a winner. So this is a person who plays hard and wants to win, and if that means setting the rules himself, he'll set the rules himself and then try to get everyone else to play by them.
Those rules would have devastating consequences for Donald's brother Fred Jr. He drank heavily and died of heart failure at the age of 43.
I think Fred would have been very happy if he didn't have to compete. He had to compete because of the environment. He had to compete. And it ultimately ended up destroying him, and it was very sad, very sad. And ultimately, it was alcohol that just decimated him. And I'm glad I'm not a drinker, and I've never had a drink in my life.
Younger brother Robert, who worked for Donald later in life, learned what older brother Donald was like at an early age.
Robert had a set of blocks, and I had a set of blocks, and I asked Robert if I could have his blocks, and I built a beautiful tall block building, and then I said I like it so much that I glued it together, and then Robert couldn't have his block. So I don't know, somehow that story is a story that a lot of people have asked me about. I don't know.
What do you think it says?
Well, it says, I think that just, even at a young age, I wasn't so much different than I am now.
Yeah, had to get what you wanted, even if it was somebody else's fault.
Yeah, it's the old story, isn't it?
Richard Lafrac has been friends with Donald Trump for nearly half a century. He says the man he knows is not that different from the boy who his brother's confiscated blocks.
The drive, the determination, this kind of boundless energy that he has, that's always been Donald. He loves to accomplish things.
So you have to get it finished and get it started.
And he loves to be complimented for it. his achievements.
Lynn Patton speaking.
His longtime staffer, Lynn Patton, says the serial Twitter user is quite old-fashioned, at least when it comes to technology.
It took us a while to wean him from a flip phone to his smartphone. Mr. Trump runs things his way, and it certainly works for him. So, they say don't fix it if it ain't broke.
There is no such thing as an email from Donald Trump. That does not exist. Never seen his computer. But he does take the time to write very nice handwritten notes. Donald never wants to grow up with a book. Donald likes activity, he likes people.
What words would you use to describe Donald Trump?
I've always had great imagination. I've had great success with money. I've actually gotten along well with people over the years.
You have said that one of the most important aspects in your personality is winning. Why winning? What about it's not whether you win or lose, it's how you play the game?
I like winning better. Look, we have to win.
Trump says another part of the formula for success is not revealing your weaknesses.
What is your greatest fear?
Well, I don't want to reveal fears because if I reveal fears, I'm giving up something. We all have certain fears and everybody has fears, but I don't like revealing my fears.
Being non-conventional is part of his playbook.
My name is Donald Trump, and I'm the largest real estate developer in New York.
Next, after extending his footprint on land, he conquered the air, television.
You want to be in the presence of Donald J. Trump, you cannot be weak. You got to be tough, and you got to be able to take it.
You're fired. You're fired. You're all fired. All four are fired.
Stay with us.
Donald Trump, the multi-millionaire real estate developer, is sounding more like a politician these days than America's most grandiose and controversial builder. When he disagrees with a matter of policy, he does it in a big way. Today, he sunk $95,000 into a full-page newspaper ad appearing in many papers criticizing the administration's foreign policy. Rumblings in the Trump camp point as far as the presidency. Could the Manhattan magnate be eyeing the White House, or is he just calling a bluff? Are you a Republican, Donald?
I'm a Republican, yes.
So if there were politics, it would be as a Republican.
It would be, I guess, as a Republican, but I don't see that there will be politics.
Why the ad then? I mean, you said you wanted to say it. There's a lot of ways you can say things. I guess an ad is one way. You could have called up shows like this who were trying to have you come on. Why now?
Well, it was very easy. I was tired, and I think a lot of people are tired of watching other countries ripping off the United States. This is a great country. They laugh at us. Behind our backs, they laugh at us because of our own stupidity and the leaders. I mean, what we have a Persian Gulf situation. You saw what happened today. Billions and billions of dollars are being spent on getting oil for Japan, and they're not paying anything for it. Essentially, they're paying nothing for it. We have tankers going back and forth that our men are protecting, losing their lives. I mean, they're losing their lives, Larry. We're spending billions and billions of protection, and those tankers are going over to Japan. It's just preposterous. I watched the Kuwaiti oil minister the other day laughing as he was explaining how much money they intend to make with the Bridgeton, which has been a total disaster with Bridgeton. And I said to myself, isn't that a shame? He's talking about how much money they're going to make, and here we are. He's smiling and laughing. Why don't we get some of it? Why is it that we're protecting? We have frogmen, we have helicopters, we have aircraft carriers, and all sorts of ships all over the Persian Gulf, so that this man and his little group can make a lot of money. I think it's ridiculous.
Well, one of the reasons we say we're doing it is because we've been doing it. That all previous presidents have endorsed doing it. I guess the kind of thinking of an entrepreneur is because somebody else said it was right doesn't make it right, right?
Larry, the country is losing $200 billion a year. $200 billion. This country cannot continue to lose $200 billion. Japan is one of the wealthiest machines ever created. Saudi Arabia, and it's not, hey, let me tell you, I'm a big beneficiary of Japan. They buy my apartments in spades. They're fine people, but they're laughing to themselves as to what's happening over here. We're not kidding ourselves. They're laughing to themselves, Larry, as to what's happening in this country.
But Donald, a lot of people feel the way you feel, and a lot of people maybe with as much money, or certainly some people with much money feel the way you feel. Why did you go public?
Because somebody had to, Larry. I watch, and again, and it's a very important point, Japan is a money machine. Saudi Arabia is a money machine. Kuwait,
These are money machines, the greatest ever created. The United States is, if it were a corporation, it would be bankrupt. It's losing $200 billion a year. For years now, it's been losing that. What right do we have to go out and defend? Why aren't these countries, these wealthy money machines, paying us for the defense of their freedom and their nations? Why aren't they paying us?
We are kind of the world's keeper, are we not?
I don't believe we should be. I think Japan should certainly make a contribution. Japan is one of the reasons they're so successful is they don't have to worry about defense, because why should they worry about defense when the United States will do it for nothing? I mean, it's crazy. Saudi Arabia, I mean, you saw what happened with Saudi Arabia. We're going through the Gulf. We have old-fashioned, obsolete minesweepers. We ask Saudi Arabia for the use of their minesweepers, which are the best made, the most modern, the best, and they say no. Who are they to tell us no? We're not going to give you our minesweepers. It's ridiculous. They're only there for the sake of us as far as that's concerned. We are protective of Saudi Arabia. They should pay for that.
Are we going to be hearing more from Mr. Trump on issues like this as we go along?
I really don't know, Larry. This is an issue that's been bothering me. It's been bothering a lot of people that I know. And I think it's an issue that had to be brought out to the fore. The concept of America financing and paying and losing lives for countries that won't even allow us to use their ships. And these are the countries that in 24 hours they'd be wiped off the face of the earth if it weren't for America. It's ridiculous.
By the way, a couple of other things, and we'll take some calls for Donald Trump. Is it true that you're going to go to New Hampshire in October at the invitation of Mike Dunbar, who's heading a group called Draft Donald Trump?
Well, I was asked about 3 or 4 weeks ago whether or not, by a very good friend of mine, whether or not I'd go to New Hampshire. That's turned out to be now a much bigger deal than I had ever anticipated. And perhaps, I don't know, I am going. I made the commitment to go. I made the commitment about 3 weeks ago. And I will go, yes.
You will go, even though you realize now, just setting foot in that state, people are going to presume things.
Well, they can presume whatever they want. I have no intention of running for president, but I'd like the point to get across that we have a great country, but it's not going to be great for long if we're going to continue to lose $200 billion a year. You're going to get into the early 90s, 1990, 1991, and the whole thing's going to blow because this country cannot continue to support Japan and Saudi Arabia and Kuwait and many other countries that are much wealthier than we are. We're not a wealthy country. You can't be a wealthy country when you're losing the kind of money that we're losing.
We're a debtor country. A couple of other things, then we'll break and take some calls. Don, why don't, there are some who said this, why don't people like you, you and people like you, build low-income, medium-income housing?
Well, as far as building housing is concerned and low-income housing, I've built a lot of it. I haven't recently, but I've built a lot of it. I built senior citizens housing and beautiful, beautiful housing. I built low-income housing, and I'm very proud of it. The policies of the government right now just don't allow it because really what's happened by the tax incentives that were taken away and by the lack of federal programs. You used to have federal programs, you don't have them anymore. And it really doesn't allow it to be done on any economic basis. And it's a pretty rough situation. I mean, you just don't have subsidized housing, low-income, moderate-income housing, and it's a really big problem.
And if they did, you would do it?
I would absolutely love to do it. I'd be honored to do it. I used to do it. I mean, people think of me in terms of Trump Tower and all the other jobs. I'm just as proud. I mean, you folks don't talk about it because maybe it's not as interesting to some people. I am, frankly, just as proud of all the low income and the senior citizen housing.
Well, so far, it's the only buildings I've asked about. Casinos. You're very big in Atlantic City. You're going to Vegas?
Well, I don't think so. I'm not looking to go to Las Vegas. I have stock in companies that are in Las Vegas, and I'm not particularly looking to do it. We've done a great job in Atlantic City. I'm very proud of the results. We have just about the best casinos, I think, anywhere in the world as far as that's concerned, hotel casinos. And we're very proud of it, and that's really pretty much where I want to be.
What's the drive, Donald, that you don't have to do this anymore, that keeps you wanting to build more and more?
Well, it's a creative process. I enjoy the creative process. I like building things. I like building beautiful buildings. I like doing other things. I've been doing a lot of other things. It's a creative process, Larry, and it really gives you something to do with your life, and it's something that you can feel fulfilled and proud of when you're finished, if you do a good job.
Do you want to break because of what you do? In other words, are you saying to New York and other places, I'll come in and do this, please give me what you will not give someone else?
No, I'm not looking for breaks. I think I probably would have a harder time getting breaks. I mean, you talk about Ed Koch. The man tried to fight me on so many different things, and he's failed. In each case, he's failed, and that's nice. I like beating it. I really get a charge out of beating Ed Koch. And, you know, it's just one of those things. But he's fought me on a lot of different things. He's consistently fought me. and he's consistently
Whereas
lost.
you don't want more or less than anyone else will get.
I don't want more or less than anybody else.
Donald Trump is our guest. He spoke out quite vociferously today in the New York Times and other papers in a major statement on American foreign policy. He's the notary, of course, builder, and we're going to take your phone calls for Donald Trump. Our guest, the famed developer Donald Trump of New York. We're ready to go to your phone calls. Redlands, California. Hello.
Hello, sir. Comment a couple of quick questions. I think it would be really a big mistake of the United States to attempt to tax its allies for protection, because that would demote them to the role of a client state in the United States. And secondly, I think it would also be pretty unconstitutional, because the Congress has the authority to raise armies and support them with taxes for the defense of the United States, not to be hired out as a mercenary force.
All right, Donald.
Well, number one, it wouldn't at all be unconstitutional. And number two, if you're talking about taxing, I'm not talking about taxing. I think that people should make a contribution, and a major contribution, other countries, to this country for what we're doing to keep their freedom and to keep them free and to allow them to be free. And would you rather have that, or would you rather see this country to go totally bust in another couple of years, because this country cannot afford to defend Japan and every other country in the world? It just cannot afford it.
It wouldn't be a tax. It would be more a payment in kind, like for landing space at airports, right?
It would be, you could call it anything you want. To be perfectly honest, I don't care what it's called, but I think that Japan and all of these other countries should certainly pay. They can well afford to pay.
Donald Trump's our guest. This is Larry King Live. We go to Toronto. Hello.
Yes, good evening, Larry. My question for Mr. Trump is a two-part question relating to international trade. Is the solution to the American trade deficit to restrict trade through protectionist policies, or to train American business to be more aggressive and entrepreneurial? And I'd also like to know if Mr. Trump would support a Canadian-U.S. free trade agreement.
Well, I think, just to answer your first part, I believe it's very important that you have free trade. But we don't have free trade right now, because if you want to go to Japan, or if you want to go to Saudi Arabia or various other countries, it's virtually impossible for an American to do business in those countries. Virtually impossible. I have many friends, they go over to Japan. They can't open up anything. They need approvals. They need this, that. In the meantime, Japan comes over to this country. They're buying up Wall Street. They're buying up all of Manhattan's real estate. They're buying, which is fine as far as I'm concerned, because they're paying premium prices that put people like myself in a very good position if I ever want to sell something. So the fact is that you don't have free trade. We think of it as free trade, but you right now don't have free trade. And I support anything having to do with Canada, because I think they've been one hell of a good ally.
Do you do any business in Canada?
I do a little bit of business with Canada, and the Canadian people are wonderful people, and they're with us 100%, as opposed to many other people in the world. We support so many countries. And, I mean, you walk out on the airport and they say, Yankee, go home. They have signs all over, Yankee, go home. Well, we're giving billions. We don't give anything to our farmers. Our farmers are dying. There's no question about it. Farms that were in for generations and families, they're being taken away. The homeless are all over the streets of the major cities. The sick and the problems. And yet we'll give billions of dollars in defending countries that have 5 times more money than we can ever hope to have. It's ridiculous.
By the way, if you put up one of your properties for sale, let's say Trump Tower, would the Japanese be at the head of the line bidding for it?
It would be very tough to compete with them, or some other countries, some other European countries right now, because of what's happening with the dollar and the yen and the mark and the various other currencies. But the Japanese are at the forefront, and it's very, very tough to compete with them in terms of the purchase of anything in this country that's prime.
Middletown, New York, for Donald Trump. Hello.
Hi, Mr. Trump. Knowing that you have differences with Mayor Koch in New York, would you be interested in a mayoral race against him?
No, I don't want to run for the mayor of the city of New York. Being mayor of New York is certainly not an easy job, but it's a job that's very possible to be done correctly. We have a man who's not a competent mayor. I think most people that live in New York know that. He's been bad for the city. He's losing a lot of business in the city, and he shouldn't be. And he's really been a pretty big disaster. And I think that probably over the next period of time, something's going to come out where he will not be the mayor of the city of New York, hopefully much longer.
Should the mayor of the city be someone who knows business?
Well, what we need is competence. We don't have that. We have a one-line artist. That's all he is. He's got sort of one-liners that are okay but not great. And that's all he's got going, and it's a problem. It's a problem because we have the greatest city in the world. It's an incredible, incredible city, and I'm proud of the city. I hate to see the job that he's done because it's really been pathetic.
You have said you have offered to build a huge metropolis on the west side. NBC, apparently, officials at NBC told me a couple of years ago that that's where they'd like to move. And now there are rumors that NBC may leave 30 Rock and go to New Jersey. But I had a top NBC official tell me he wanted to move to your plant on the west side. Where is that now?
Well, I think we have a real good chance. Again, no thanks to Ed Koch, but I think we have a real good chance of getting NBC to stay in New York, and we're fighting very hard for it. We have a very, very good shot, and I anticipate that they'll be making the decision over the next 4 or 5 weeks, and it'll be a very, very big decision, very important to the future of New York City.
Lowell, Massachusetts, for Donald Trump. Hello.
Yes, hello, Larry. Donald, first of all, I want to commend you guys who the other nations should take part in the extent to help push it up. So my question to you is the following. You are a very wealthy man and have many contacts. Why can't you do more for the hungry and the homeless in New York?
Well, I think it's a very good question, and I'd like to. The problem that you have, and you have a major problem, the problem that you have is it's such a big, big dilemma. You really need federal government assistance, not even city government. The city governments have to be competent, capable, etc. But you really need the federal government to step in. That's why it bothers me so much that when we give this kind of money to the wealthiest countries in the world, and yet for our own people, the homeless, the sick, the poor, the farmers who are really going through hell right now, those people we're not helping. And why should we? I think it's ridiculous. And this country shouldn't be raising taxes. We should be lowering taxes. We should have a surplus, not a deficit. Because the kind of money that I'm talking about, and you can call them, as the gentleman before said, you can call it a tax, you can call it whatever you want to call it. But those countries should be paying us major billions of dollars, and you won't have any deficits whatsoever. And then we'll be able to help the poor and the sick and the homeless and the farmers and everybody else.
Donald, what were you hearing today after that ad appeared? What were people telling you? I imagine you got tons of calls.
It was unbelievable, to be perfectly honest. I put the ad in thinking maybe a couple of politicians would see it, and maybe they'd say, hey, you know what? That happens to be a great idea, and he happens to be right. We've gotten thousands of phone calls. We've gotten tremendous support. I've never seen anything like it. I have literally never dreamt that this kind of reaction could have happened from taking a newspaper ad essentially saying, hey, we're making a mistake, and this is what we should be doing.
West Patterson, New Jersey. Hello.
Hello, I'd like to, hi Larry, I want to ask Mr. Trump a question about the Japanese, and if they keep on buying up all the real estate in Hawaii and in New York, will this come to a point where they will be dictating our policy and we'll be afraid to move against them? I think it's almost at that point now.
There's a book out, Don, that says that already exists, that Japan is, in a sense, wielding the rope with us.
I believe it already is true to a large extent, and there's no reason for it to be. We had the right people. We had the right people with the right instincts and business ability. There'd be no way that could happen. And that's why I hate to see what I see. By the way, I like the Japanese very much. I do tremendous amounts of business with them. They do very well as far as I'm concerned. The man just bought a $21 million apartment in one of the buildings I own.
A what?
A $21 million. He bought 7 apartments, a Japanese man. Wonderful man. He bought 7 apartments, put them together. He's building a $21 million apartment. That's without the cost of construction, by the way. Plenty of money. I like them very much, but they laugh at us. They're laughing at this country and the way the country is being managed. And they should be laughing. They should be laughing.
In a $3 million apartment, if you got apartment 3B and 3A is hanging the picture, you wouldn't hear that at 3B, would you?
Hopefully not in the kind of buildings.
Okay, now it's just a little question from someone. Okay, Ocean City, New Jersey. Hello.
Yeah, Larry and Donald, how are you doing? I have a comment and a question, then I'll hang up and I'll listen. First off, I really enjoyed having Mr. Trump here. As a 32-year-old business person myself, I think he is a tremendous role model for young people like myself that look at him and write down their goals and strive to be better. That's the comment. The question is, I've always felt that NATO and West Germany, I mean, we have all those troops over there. I feel that they should pay their way. And then my second question is, and I'll hang up, is what other topic is near and dear to his heart? Thank you.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I agree with you on NATO. I agree with you on other countries. I don't want to single out Japan. I don't want to single out Saudi Arabia, but these are countries that people understand the kind of wealth we're talking about. And I will single them out. But there are many other countries and taking tremendous advantage of this, including NATO. If you look at the payments that we're making to NATO, they're totally disproportionate with everybody else's, and it's ridiculous. As far as other causes that are near and dear, this is the cause, because if we can solve this, then we're able to take care of something that I consider to be ultimately of ultimate importance, and that is the homeless situation. That is the farmers. That is the sick. We don't have any money. This country is busted. And it's busted because we're doing things that we shouldn't be doing. If we had business ability in this country, we'd be making lots of profit, so-called surplus profit. And that profit, that money, could be going to defend and I literally mean defend our homeless and our poor and our sick and our farmers. And that's where we ought to be spending the money, not giving it to countries that don't give a damn for us to start with.
Give me a development forecast for the rest of the 80s, good or bad, for buildings.
I think it's going to be good in New York City. It's been bad in a lot of other places. It's going to get bad unless we do something about this horrible, horrendous deficit. You cannot continue to lose $200 billion a year. It's going to be so bad that people will never, I really believe this could be much, much worse, unfortunately, than recession. This could be the step beyond. I hate to use the word depression, but if we don't solve the $200 billion a year loss, which is exactly what we have, this country is going to have some very, very serious problems in the early 1990s.
One other thing, could the next presidency be a one-term presidency because of that?
I think the next president of the United States could have some very, very, very serious problems. It's going to be, I think, it's going to be a very difficult presidency because of the problems that we're talking about right now.
And you don't want it to be Donald Trump.
I do not want it to be Donald Trump, but I do want the problems to be solved. Right?
Thanks, Don. I'll see you in New York.
Thank you, Larry.
Rich, ruthless, and famous, my guest is a New York institution known for the buildings he's built and the wives he's divorced. You don't want to cross him, though, because he likes getting even. And he's made it a rule that no one pushes him around, ever. So how did he lose all his money and then get it back again?
Donald Trump, I love this program. You say you don't make wrong without making things. That sounds like a very destructive business philosophy, isn't it?
Well, I'm not sure that I actually use those words, but generally we have to shake things up pretty much in order to do something. And I have shaken things up. I've had the best business years of my life.
How rough is business in New York? It's the toughest, the roughest, most business in the world, is it?
Well, I think that business in New York tends to be tougher maybe than other places, but I'm not so sure that's true. The real estate business in New York is an amazing business. It's a great business. And anytime you have a great business, you always have competition, and you always have, unfortunately, the smart and the tough people coming into it.
You have to be a killer in business?
I think you have to be smart in business. I don't think you have to be a killer. I think you have to be smart.
Does that mean eyes in the back of your head, always looking to see who's going to get you, who's trying to do one more?
Well, one of the things I say in the book, and I say very strongly, is you have to be paranoid. The book is selling so well, and there's people believe this, but there is a certain advantage to having a certain degree of paranoia. You watch, you can be a little bit careful, you watch what's happening behind your back, and I think that's probably very true in business.
If you're paranoid, how much enjoyment? How much time do you actually sit back and sort of put that down?
I think that there's great enjoyment. I think that paranoia cannot be carried to a life-shattering crisis point. But I think it's good to always know that people are out there, they're looking to throw you off your throne. But I think success brings great enjoyment, and certainly has for me.
Is it the competition that fires you up? Is it the money? What is it that gets you out of bed? What is it?
I really think it's the artistic or the aesthetic. I love building great buildings. Because most of my business is building things. I get great artistic pride out of a great building like Trump Tower, which is on 57th Street in Fifth Avenue, New York, or Trump International Hotel in town, a new building in Central Park, Mass. And I get a great sense of artistic enjoyment out of those buildings.
What do you think of business methods? What do you think of the way people conduct businesses?
Well, I don't think that New York is that much different from other places. What I do think is that there's a greater energy in New York. There's a greater verve or a greater drive in New York most other places, and really than any other place I've seen. But I don't think the business itself is much different.
Greed, corruption. When you say it's a throwaway line, I think the book greed is good.
Well, I don't think greed is good. As you know, they did the famous movie, like the Douglas Wall Street movie, greed is good. But that is not the case. I think greed is bad. I think that you have to enjoy what you're doing. If you enjoy what you're doing, you'll be successful generally. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, it's almost never going to be successful.
Rich men are always targets for which you get as opposed to bigger the target which you present to people. How does it that?
Well, I think that rich men, I guess, are rich people. And I think that there's a level of celebrity that I've attained, which has become so ridiculous that it makes me bigger. So it always bothers me, but there's really not much I can do.
Ridiculous in what way?
Well, it's just become very tough. It's very tough to
That's a simple success.
It is, but it's not necessarily a good system. It's really because of that survival. You go out and you want to have dinner at a restaurant with a group of people, and it ends up being a big event and have people waiting at the restaurant. It's just a very tough way to lead life.
You talk in your book about getting even, the importance of it. Is revenge sweet?
I believe strongly that if somebody is hurt you, if somebody's gone out of their way to hurt you, I think that you have the opportunity, you should certainly go out of your way to do it. I've had more criticism about that one statement from than any other statement. The clergy is told, the ministers, the priests, the rabbis, they've all said, what a terrible thing to say. That's against our teachings. I believe in an eye for an eye.
If you did turn the other cheek as the clergy that was already suggesting to you, what would that do to your reputation as a certain serial?
Well, I don't know what it would do to my reputation. I just don't believe instinctively in turning the other cheek. If somebody was out to hurt you, if somebody was out to do a number on you, I really believe you should just do a number on them if you get the chance.
Can you give me an example?
Well, there were people that I really helped in business when things were very good in the 1980s and my company was very good. And they did not lift a finger to help me when I needed it. And there were a couple of them that could have very easily helped me. Now I have the opportunity to do a number of those people, and I will tell you that.
Who are the movers and shakers in society? You get the impression that New York is in the hands of a few very, very rich people, yourself really good. Decisions in smoke-filled rooms, is that what businesses conduct?
Well, I think New York is very much run politically. I think we have a mayor that's Rudy Giuliani, who's done an incredible job. And just got reelected by a huge margin, I guess the largest margin ever. He has been an incredible mayor, he's done a really good job. And he's just great. And he sort of starts off with the mayor, the leadership, the politicians. We have other people within the business community, obviously, that are very important, and there are a lot of them. But the city has just become very, very hot. And I think it's due to Rudy and lots of people in business that have done a good job.
When you say hot, it's more focused?
It's really become focused. It's just a place where everyone wants to be. People want to come to New York. They love the city. They want to be here. They want the action. You know, New York is action. New York is unbelievable action. And everyone wants to be here. And I happen to be the biggest developer in New York. My company now is doing much better than it ever did in the 1980s.
What do you attribute that to?
Well, I think one thing is perseverance. I mean, when things were tough at the beginning of the 90s for me and everyone else, the problem with me is I was getting all the publicity.
Great Depression.
I call it the Great Depression. I'm actually really in a real estate depression. And it was real estate and retailing and airlines and various other businesses. They were in a total depression. They were in a recession. And I survived. Most people didn't survive. A lot of my friends, a lot of good people and bad people had to go bankrupt. And, never heard from them again. And you probably never will hear from them again. But, I survived to a point where the company is much bigger now than it ever was. It's much stronger financially than it ever was. And I wrote a book about it.
But in the early 90s, you faced the possibility of losing everything. In fact, on paper, you had lost.
I had faced the possibility of losing it. I went back to work, I focused my mental energies, all of my energies.
You never thought of giving up?
No, I think one of the reasons I really succeeded, and bigger than even in the 80s, was the fact that there's a little word called perseverance. I didn't stop.
Quite low.
It's a long word, but I didn't stop, and I did persevere. I went against a lot of odds. I came up with a phrase, survived till 85, that was in the early 1980s. It turned out to be right, because the world changed, the economy changed, and there was a survival tactic until a certain year.